Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be here sharing with you some perspective and insights about China cross-border e-commerce. A couple of years ago, one of my former assistants, she moved to USA. She resigned and moved to USA. She told me finally she found the perfect way to balance her life and work. So basically, when she is taking care of her husband and the kids, she also running kind of a cross-border e-commerce. She said it's cross-border e-commerce. Basically, what she's doing is she posts the popular product like infant formula, like cosmetic and luxury goods on her WeChat moment. And she goes shopping every day based on the order she received from the WeChat, from friends and family. So question here, how many of you believe what she's doing is cross-border e-commerce? How many of you believe? So let me change my question. How many of you don't believe she is doing cross-border e-commerce? And then it's weird. Okay, so let's see. I list down all these questions. These questions are those questions I was frequently asked by the people around the world. So I hope in the next half an hour, I can give you the clarity to make sure you understand what's the cross-border e-commerce and if this model is sustainable enough. Then let's start with the question, what is cross-border e-commerce? In China, we call it CBE. So CBE actually is a very special route to the market compared with the general trading. How special? Let me give you an example by using our product. I'm from Danone. Then I use IMF product, infant formula. If you want to import a normal infant formula product into China, first of all, you need, when you design your formula, you need to make sure all your ingredients is approved by the Chinese government. And then you need to make sure your recipe is duly registered by the Chinese authority. And then you need to make sure your factory manufacturing these products is certified by the CNCA, another authority, based on the China GMP requirement. And when your product arrives at your port, you are subject to the goods inspection. It takes weeks versus Chinese national standards. So the entire process I'm talking about roughly is 2 to 3 years if you are lucky enough. However, if you go to CBE cross-border scheme, 80 to 90% steps I just described will be exempted. And then you can feel the huge difference here, right? That's why we are talking about CBE is a very unusual and special route to the market. However, this definition of CBE is not just come out overnight. It took Chinese authority years to finally figure out how to treat cross-border business. So first of all, the CBE I just described actually should be precisely defined as cross-border e-commerce retail import. Under the definition given by the authority last November, they defined CBE first as a consumer personal behavior. They purchase the goods overseas, and they just make their transactions through the e-platform only under 2 business models. One we call the bonded imported model, and another one we call the direct purchase model. There is a clear supervision code given by Chinese general customers. And this CBE scheme, subject to the different tax scheme, is very attractive. So I already talked about the too many elements to remember, right? So don't worry, I will zoom into details. First, let's look at the scope. Literally, CBE could mean any cross-border transaction, could including, general trading, could include B2C, B2B, import, export. That's literally meaning. However, today, the CBE I'm talking about, cross-border e-commerce, it's the small one. Only that small one, the light blue one, is the special CBE scheme. It is heavily promoted by the Chinese government and will be given preferential treatment. That's the CBE I'm talking about. And you can see the scope is totally different. In different contexts, even in China, you will heard the different, CBE definition. However, apart from that smallest circle I'm talking about, for the rest of CBE, that's subject to the general trading rules, which means the imported process I just described or applied, only CBE scheme, you will enjoy a lot of advantage in terms of import. And then when we talk about the definition at the very beginning, if you remember, we talk about the Chinese government defined CBE as an individual, consumer's individual behavior. So why? This is the foundation for the imported goods, which can be exempted from the goods inspection. Because otherwise, you have no reason to treat this import channel differently. And here, this is a simplified mapping to show you how these CBE participants interact with each other. The red line means the payment flow. The blue line means the order flow. And the purple line means logistic flow. So here, I want to draw your attention is on the dot line. The dot line, all this information has to be synchronized to the general customer system. We call it three-sheet information submission. That's one of the most important characteristics of the cross-border e-commerce. And then based on the definition I just showed you, there are two models. I mentioned only two models are allowed under Chinese special CBE scheme. So these models, one is direct purchase model and another is bonded imported model. So what's the difference? So the direct purchase model, you can see when consumer place the order, you can directly ship the parcel from the overseas directly to end user consumer. And the bonded imported model, the biggest benefit here is you can do the bulk shipment. You can carry the huge volume of your product and build the inventory in the bonded zone. That's a big difference of these two models. And the last one, we call it international postal shipment. It is not a CBE model. However, it is quite popular in the world. A lot of people, especially Daigou, it's a very special term. I believe some of you heard that. They are using this model. At the beginning, I described what my former assistant is doing. She is doing international postal shipment. It is not CBE we are talking about, but it's also kind of a cross-border transaction as well. So, which means you receive the order and you mail your parcel from the overseas directly to the end user consumer. And I know you will ask me, what's the difference versus direct purchase, right? If you look at the flow, sounds the same. The difference is a tax rate. The CBE tax rate today is 9.1%. Under the international postal shipment, the tax rate is 13%. And another big difference is, I just described you, for the CBE model, all the information about the payment, about the logistic order need to be submitted to the customer system. However, so for this international postal shipment model, you don't have to, although you need to subject to different type of the customer clearance process. That's a big difference. So far, I think a lot of people will agree. CBE model is a very convenient route to the market, which provides you a lot of flexibilities in terms of import, right? Which I agree. Yes, CBE means almost no product inspection at port level. And your Chinese trader don't need apply for import license. And no registration permit or filing is required. It's quite convenient. However, if someone thinks this approach is totally market entry free, you are wrong. There are also a lot of constraints about of the CBE model. First, resale is prohibited. Because the definition of CBE is from the overseas directly to the end user consumer, so which means you are not allowed to resell these products. And second, from the other angle, all the CBE products is not allowed to be sold in the physical store. So brick-and-mortar business will not be allowed in China. And last, no stock out of the bounded zone. So you cannot build your own stock, your inventory, anywhere, only within the bounded zone. So that's the constraints of this CBE model. With regard to the legal requirement, I will talk about in details later on. So far, I don't know if everybody already got some idea about what's the CBE. Let's do some small exercise to see some real example about CBE. Is this a CBE? This is a flagship store on Tmall. Yes, it is a typical CBE program. We call it, this is a bounded imported model. Why? Because, sorry, it's in Chinese, the website, but it is clearly show this product is directly shipped from the Germany to the Tianjin port of China and with certain tax rate. So based on that information, we can clearly identify this is a bounded imported model through CBE scheme. It's on the Tmall. And this one is from the Amazon overseas website. It is also a CBE model, another type of CBE model called direct purchase model. If you remember, I just mentioned the two CBE models. Similarly, the product is shipped from the Germany directly to the end user consumer here with the CBE tax rate. How about these two? This one is in Taobao. And this lady is, showing the video. She's purchased this product in UK. However, this is not CBE and even not legal because it shows her inventory is from the China city called Qingdao, directly to Shanghai, and without any tax implication here. And on the Tmall Global, we also found another flagship store. So this trader is using a long CBE model, but also compliant model. This is the one international postal shipment model. So if you remember, I just give you the chart to compare the 2 CBE model and the 1 non-CBE model. This is that one. So I hope everybody are clear about this. So we finished our first class. And then let me introduce the new CBE regulatory framework in China. So actually last November, November 28th, is a big day for all the e-commerce operators, because at that day, Chinese government eventually announced they will open the door of CBE to the world. So it's a quite busy slide. You don't have to look into details. What I want to tell you is, so for the light green part, it's all the regulation about CBE. You can see already announced so many regulations on cross-border e-commerce. However, if you are doing CBE business in China, you cannot just think about that part. You need to take into account that dark green part as well. That is all the general laws and regulations, including e-commerce law, consumer protection law, tax law, advertising law, all of this you need to take into account. To facilitate the understanding, so I summarized all the CBE regulation into 7 aspects, which I believe is quite important. So for any people who want to enter into China market through CBE, this can serve as 7 checking points. So first, you need to start it from the positive list to check, if your product can be allowed under CBE scheme. And second, you need to think about which CBE model I have to use. And next, of course, tax. How much tax I want to pay. And then 4 is about your business partner's qualification. And 5, import control. Although I just mentioned about a lot of benefit and convenience, under this CBE scheme, however, you need to be aware there is still import control. 6, how to do the data transaction. And 7 is the safety and the risk control system. So I will talk about it one by one. First, it's about a positive list. So positive list assign each product with a special address code. So you can compare with your address code and the positive list. And then you may have the question, what if I try to import it to China, a very special new category, and this product has never been sold in China? And then what you need to do? You need to do the pre-categorization with the GACC. GACC is the general customers in China. And the authority will assign you the HSCQ code, and you need to do the comparison by yourself. If you can find that in the positive list, congratulations, you can go ahead. But if you cannot find the code in the positive list, which means your product for the time being, it is not allowed to go through the CBE scheme. So positive list, the first. And I already talked about a lot about the CBE 2 models. I won't repeat, but only highlight one point here is the CBE port. You need to think about how to choose. In China, we have a long coastline, so which port you need to choose. There are, as of today, there are 96 ports which allowed you to use bounded import CBE model. In other words, so if you don't select the one among these 96, you can only use direct purchase model or general trading. This one is quite important about tax scheme. Maybe I spend a little bit more time here. First, for the versus, international postal model, I just mentioned, is 13. Basically, that 13 tax rate is duty. For the CBE, duty part is waived by the government. However, you still need to pay VAT as 9.1%. And for the general trading, you need to pay both duty and VAT. You may heard a lot of, I saw a lot of news from the overseas talk about the tax exemption about CBE. Actually, it's a wrong concept. Under CBE, there is no tax exemption. The number you heard, 5,000 or 26,000, it's not tax exemption. It's a purchase quota. So everyone per order, you can have the 5,000 quota to purchase CBE product. Annually, you will have a 26,000 RMB as your purchase quota. But you still need to pay the VAT. But if you look at the international postal part, you will find, okay, apart from the purchase quota, you do have the tax exemption. That's the beauty of the international postal model. And that's the reason why today, around the world, a lot of traders are still using international postal model because there is a tax exemption. It's not too much, but it's also quite attractive. The tax exemption here means for the payable tax under 50 RMB, your tax can be exempted. If I use IMF product as an example, which means 2 tin. 2 tin, you can, per order without tax, to put it a simple way. So bear in mind, for CBE, no tax-free. And next, how to select your Chinese partners. So I just show you at the beginning, there are 6 participants of the CBE. And in China, first thing is, as a CBE operator, you should be the overseas, registered in overseas. However, you need to find a Chinese partner which is incorporated in China. The reason is quite simple, because Chinese consumer, if they have a product issue, they want to hold someone liable for this. You cannot expect an individual consumer to sue overseas company. That's why they required that your CBE operators have the Chinese partner. And for the CBE platform, it should be incorporated in China. And for the CBE platform, they need to provide the IP protection, consumer protection, data protection, etc. For the service provider, it also should be the Chinese company and with a certain qualification. So I better speed up. For the import control, I just already mentioned, although a lot of things has been waived, however, bear in mind the port control is still in place. You need to select the right port for your bonded imported. And although the goods inspection is waived, however, product quarantine still exists. And there is a quota control I just already mentioned. At the port, at the different port, when you import your product, you will encounter the random testing from the Chinese, local authority as well, especially for some food safety parameters like microbes and heavy metals. And sometimes the authority need you to explain if your product is strictly compliant with your sourcing country's regulation. And sometimes they even ask you to provide the qualification of your manufacturer. So last, the data transmitting. So basically, why the general customer asks you to do the data transmission through transmitting through the CBE platform or through your service provider, they try to prevent the tax evasion, try to avoid fake transaction, try to protect the consumers' privacy and the data, and try to also prevent some traders through illegal way to collect the consumers' personal data, to steal the quota. So I need to speed up. And the last part is very important, is anytime the Chinese government, they can cease the CBE treatment whenever they feel there is a high risk involved. So the high risk could be means product from the epidemic area, could means there is a severe food safety and quality issue, could means they found a lot of people they are doing resale, smuggling, offline sale. And once that happens, they can ask you to do the product recall. They conduct the goods inspection, treat you as a normal general trading product. And they may even cease your operation and release a risk alert to the public. For the medium level risk, so far the government believes it is a controllable risk, which mainly means the different standards or the different labeling without the Chinese instruction there. So in that case, they encourage e-platform and the operators to fully release the product information on the website and to do the risk monitoring, set up the traceability system, and they also allocate the liability among the CBE operators, Chinese partners, and e-platforms. So given the sake of time, I maybe skip some slides. So let's jump to the last one. So we just talk about the new regulation. So here, maybe some tips or recommendations to the CBE operators. Sometimes we call brand owners. The position of the Chinese government, actually, they highly encourage everybody to offer overseas product to Chinese consumer through safe, traceable, and controllable approach. So which means first, they required everybody to set up the traceability system. And next, they want us to do certain channel control to integrate small traders into the big one. And in the meanwhile, they highly recommend the brand owner to provide the consumer authenticity checking system. And in the meanwhile, they also encourage you to build the effective risk alert system. So, of course, in any case, it is highly recommended to be cooperative and transparent in front of the authorities' inquiry. So, in reality, the complexity of CBE is far more than what I just described. CBE regulation is evolving every day in China, but in the meanwhile, it is provide a lot of business opportunity to the world. That's why it's so attractive. So I think I have done my part. Hope I don't occupy